cancer. And I had a friend in Phoenix about 8 years before whose child had survived pediatric cancer. And the friend in Phoenix said to me, people disappear. The people that you expect are going to be there to support you just are gone. So when my friend Jill, who wasn't actually my friend, I sort of stalked her, but we won't get into all that. But I essentially just decided like I was going to help her. It didn't matter how, I was going to do it. And we'd met one time before, and then about 3 weeks later, her daughter was diagnosed with a very rare form of pediatric cancer. And so I tried to figure out what I could do, and I really didn't know what I could do. But what I ended up doing was just reaching out to a friend who owned a restaurant, and they did a race every year, and I said, is there any way that the race could benefit this family? And it's Jay Bryan's go, because Jack Highland is very generous, and he said, absolutely, no problem. So the race benefited them that year, and then I thought, well, gosh, maybe I could just keep going and do more for them. So I wound up doing a fundraiser last fall, right around this time last year, at Amy's Cafe, and it was one of the most amazing experiences ever. I mean, we raised so much money, and just all the people in the community gave and gave and gave, and it was just a really great experience. So one day Jill said to me on the phone about after her daughter, I'll show you a picture of her daughter, who, by the way, in case you're wondering, is doing very, very, very well. That's Abby. She said to me one day on the phone, will you be my girl's fairy godmother? And I said, sure, I will. That's great. And then I said to my husband, well, maybe this is what I should do. Maybe I should try and help other families that have pediatric cancer and just, try and make a difference. And so during the course of all this, Stephanie had offered a photography session to this family, and it just seemed like a good fit. The two things just went really well together. And it sort of evolved slowly, more grassroots than anything else, just sort of like, oh, we can do meals and we can do this, and and as time went on, it just, I don't know, kind of fell into place. And then I reached out to Journey for a Cure to see if they would be interested in just helping us find families. They're a nonprofit based out of Ashburn, and they were started because a child also had the same kind of cancer as Evie, but he did not make it. And so the family started this organization, and it's an amazing organization. They've only been around about a year, and the things they've done have been pretty amazing. But they're focused mainly on research. And when I spoke to the president, she said, we've been trying to find a family piece, and we just haven't found it. And so Stephanie and I went, and we had a meeting with her, and she said, we want you to be part of us. And so we have since officially joined Journey for a Cure. We're considered a program of Journey for a Cure. So that's sort of the background, and it just keeps evolving. But one of the things that we wanted to, with it, kind of realize is important is that people get a good understanding of the perspective of being a family impacted by cancer. And so we have a very, very courageous woman who's going to speak with all of you tonight about her family's experience. Hi. This is now Cathanos. And
hi. Thanks for coming tonight.
Here.
Sorry if I say too many ums or have all this stuff all prepared. I'm not ready to call. This is my daughter, Lauren. My daughters, Lauren and Lindsay. Lauren is 5. She was diagnosed with leukemia in January of this year. It was January 4th. She has ALL, which is acute lymphoblastic leukemia. We are very blessed that she is standard risk, and she has a very great prognosis. The cure rate or the treatability rate for this is over, what I've read and what I've been told, is over 90%. There's 4 different types of leukemia, and within each type, there's different risk levels for various reasons. We're very blessed with the condition she has. I never thought I would say that. We're very blessed for the kind of leukemia she has, but we are. It definitely makes a big difference in your day-to-day mental and emotional state, and physical state, and family state, and everything else. We went into the hospital on January 4th, and she left the hospital February 17th. She turned 5 on February 13th. And we sang happy birthday to her. It was the hardest birthday song I ever sang, but I look back and I'm so glad, that we had. While we were, she's in remission, and I think now I really should know this, but there's just so much going on. I mean, there's so much going on in like normal lives, just with day-to-day activities, everything. Managing your kids and your schedules and whatever's going on in your family and your history and your life. I mean, it's just, there's a lot going on, just period. And then you throw cancer, another spoke in the wheel, and it's like, oh my gosh. But I should know. I'll find out for the next meeting, but I'm pretty sure she's cancer-free. She was in remission when we left, and at this point in time in her treatment, I think she's considered cancer-free, but she has to finish her treatment, which will be February 2013. It's a 2-year treatment program for her risk level and for what her diagnosis is. I remember when we left the hospital, there's another sorry. Too much Toastmasters. When we were in the hospital, they said that all the doctors and the staff were like, well, you'll create a new normal. And like, I don't know how, but with the help of family and friends and Fairy Godmother Project, we have. In the hospital was really, really hard, especially towards the end. She was so ready to go. She was a trooper. She wanted to know what everything was. She watched every little poke and prod, and she asked questions about all the different kinds of meds she was getting, and she knew one of parts of her treatment is, she gets spinal taps and they give her chemotherapy into her spine. And she wanted to know why they did it, and she, at this point, understood what leukemia is, and it's sick blood cells, and they have to take a sample, give you medicine in your spine just to double, make sure that it's all the sick cells are being treated, and they take a little sample and they look at it under the microscope. Well, she was all over, well, I want to see. So she is a very inquisitive, smart little girl, and one day at the clinic, they let her see her cells under the microscope. So luckily there was no leukemia cells to observe. Her treatment is a 5-phased plan. I think it's 5. I should have bet it. All I know is that we're in the last one. Okay, but it's the longest one. We have 70 weeks. Yes, 70 weeks left, so just February 2013. She, currently, our treatment is a repeating 3-week regime, and it's inclusive of 1 day a week we travel to Fairfax, and there we get seen by the doctor. She gets blood drawn. One out of 3 weeks, it's through her port. They access her port. If you're not familiar with what that is, she has basically a central line under her skin, and there's the needle, which I usually refer to as a nail, and it's connected to a tube, and they access her port, and it's not fun, but she's brave, and some weeks are better than others. Some weeks she doesn't say a word, and some weeks she cries and screams, but she sits still, which is what her job is. She's very good at it. So she gets doctor visits, she gets blood drawn, either through the port or through the finger. She gets chemo, which is injections in her legs, and then she was getting a intravenous antibiotic, so she didn't get a certain kind of pneumonia, and she was. But now we're taking pills for that at home, so we don't have to do that part. That was a 3-hour process just for that. So we go to Fairfax once a week for that. And then in addition to that, there's at-home meds, which are inclusive of of, there's an at-home chemotherapy pill she takes at night for 2 weeks out of the 3-week regime. She's starting to take pills by herself, so that's helpful because without that, we have to crush it up and put it in juice. Then she drinks the juice, and then we have to add a little water to make sure we get all the little particles because she has to take it all. So that's her at-home chemo. We have to wear gloves when we do it. She takes steroids 5 days out of the 3. I hate steroids. It makes art. But, I'll take it because it's healing her. There's roid rage, there's hunger, there's cravings like I never had when I was pregnant, and they're very specific, and if you don't have it, you have to go to the store. There's just no way around it. There's no discipline involved. You just got to do it. And then in addition to that, there's Miralax. I think we all know what that's for. There's Pepsid. There's Tylenol, and then there's Tylenol with codeine, and then there's Zofran for nauseousness. I think that covers everything. So that's basically just her treatment. Now, luckily, the Zofran, she doesn't have to take it on a regular basis. And I'm hesitant to say it out loud because now when I go home, she's going to have it every day. But she doesn't have, I've had to give it to her like 3 times. We are very blessed, and I think that there has been divine intervention in our situation. I know stories of other children who don't tolerate the medicine as well, and so she doesn't have to take the Zofran very often. She doesn't have to take the Tylenol. Literally, I can probably count on one hand how many times I've had to give it to her. We left the hospital February 17th, so we're very lucky, very blessed. And then there's the Tylenol with codeine. I've had to give her that 2 or 3 times. The steroids can make your bones hurt, can make your muscles ache. One of her chemos she gets is vincristine. That can make any boo-boo that you had, it can escalate that, and it can just cause pain. So if she's playing too hard, then she gets back pain, or pain here or there. So there's been a couple of times where in the middle of the night I've had to give her some Tylenol with codeine, and then hopefully I would work. If it didn't, then I was going to have to rush her to the hospital. So that's her treatment. That's her meds. And that's basically 1 day a week, and then at-home treatment. Now, with all that treatment, we're also balancing some behavioral challenges, which are totally okay because they're completely understandable, but there's behavioral challenges, especially not steroids. Then there's learning. She's in kindergarten. She was in preschool when she got diagnosed at Ferry Farm Baptist. They're great people who are there. And now she's in kindergarten. It's a day-by-day decision whether to send her, depending on how she feels. Does she have a fever? Do I think she's getting a cold? Or do I know of other people that may have sniffles over there? This past week she went 4 days. Wednesday we went to clinic, and this is the first week that she went all 4 days. But she's doing great. She's having fun. She complains about going to school like a normal kid. She's I'm bored. It's hot. She's really a trooper. And then her little sister Lindsay is also in preschool. So with the treatment and the steroids, and with the treatment and the steroids and the cravings and the pickiness of a 5-year-old and the, then our family life, sibling, Lindsay, bless her heart, is a thriving 3-year-old who there's sibling rivalry, they fight all the time, there's discipline necessary, and then you administer the discipline, and then after that, I am like, oh great, I just totally screamed out my child with cancer, oh my God, what am I doing, But it's necessary if you're trying to thrive in a normal life as possible and believe in your hearts of hearts everything is going to be fine. You need to proceed as best you can, and to be a good mom or parent or role model, discipline's important sometimes. You still have to do it. So that is our treatment since diagnosis. But before, our lives were, I don't know about normal. Yeah, I know, that's what I was going to say. Everybody's everybody's definition of normal, my husband always says that, everybody's definition of normal is different. And I don't even know if ours was. We moved to Fredericksburg, or we moved back to Virginia from Colorado 4 years ago, actually this week, and we're still not unpacked. I got pregnant soon after we moved here, and now my daughter's, the youngest one is 3, so, you know, we dealt with the newborn and unpacking, and we're still not unpacked. So, but before it was busy, anxious, joyous, messy, not messy, organized, not organized, you know, I just winging it. You know, but now our normal is inclusive of pediatric cancer, and it still includes all of that, but it's, personally for me as a mom, it definitely includes, you know, increased anxiety, increased fear. You know, I already was a huge worrier, and now it's every night. You know, I don't know if I keep myself busy on purpose or stay up late on purpose because I don't want to have time to think about the what if. You know, like I said, we're blessed for our diagnosis, but there are families whose situation even, you know, is much more dire. It's, you know, the what if, there's definitely increased fear. There's increased anxiety. There's anger. There's sadness. There's mourning what was. There is happiness and there's joy, and that's, you know, a lot of it's, you know, new things that are funny, new things to laugh at. You know, Lauren always, she's like, oh, I know Wednesday clinic, blah, blah, blah. You know? It's like, I hate the clinic. You know, they have an art therapy room there, and always a reminder of that. But we get to go make this. Oh, yeah, yeah. So she finds joy or gets creative in whatever she does. So with the increased, so our new normal, all right, we've got increased time management challenges. We've got increased logistical challenges. We've got increased, you know, sibling rivalry. We've got increased emotions all over the board. We have increased fights. My husband and I are just, I'll just put it out there, we like fight all the time, you know, but there's increased closeness when those fights are over. There's, you know, I mean, it's, you go change Lindsay's diaper. No, I got to give Lauren her steroid, you know? I mean, that's there. So, it can get overwhelming. It definitely can. It can get overwhelming from the generosity that exists out there, especially from the Fairy Godmother Project. It can get overwhelmed from the friendship that's out there, from new and old friends. It can get overwhelming from the fear. It can get overwhelming just from all the information that's out there. It's just, it can be, well, for me personally, it can be stifling. You know, there's a website called Momcologist. There's all these, there's a lot of nonprofit organizations. There's all this information, and that's not real, that's just from Facebook dabbling. That's not even from going on the internet. And I did that once, and I'm not going back there. It's not a good thing. So thank God for the Fairy Godmother Project, because their assistance has helped decrease some of the anxieties, has helped decrease the logistical challenges, helped decrease the time management challenges. They have provided meals, they have cleaned my house, they have provided friendship, they have been a shoulder. They've just, they've done a lot for our family. And it has helped tremendously, because all of those things, by their effort decreasing all those things I just mentioned, allows me to spend, or allows my husband and I to spend more quality time with our family, which, if your mind is in the what if scenario, that's really what's important. You know, I mean, God forbid something happened, but you have to be there every day, and if you have to discipline as best you can as a mom, then that's the thing that you have to do that day, but you have to do it as best you can. And and appropriately as you can. I mean, you just have to make every day your best because you don't know what's going to happen. And the Fairy Godmother Project helps me do that, definitely, and my husband. The article that existed, or the article that was in the paper, is funny. My husband is, the one thing, I think the first thing, well, Stephanie organized some meals for us Stephanie and Ashley, my neighbors, came to visit us in the hospital, and then she organized some meals and stuff like that. And then the Fairy Godmother Project got like more formally involved, and I had met Jill, her friend Jill, in the hospital. She was stalked me. The stalker. Yeah, and then she paid it forward. She came. She's like, yeah, I was told to come meet you. So we met.
I don't know
Jill.
who told her to.
Yeah. And there was another girl too that stalked me too. I think.
A friend of Jill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lyndon.
Yeah.
So it I forgot where it was, but it's definitely been a godsend.
You're talking about the article.
Oh, sorry. Thank
Yeah,
you.
the article. Only because I think it's funny.
Thanks. Oh.
I don't know if that's the story you're going to tell.
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
One of the first formal things that they did for us was they came and they organized my freezers. Now, that was mentioned in the article that was in the paper, the first one. And when I was speaking to the reporter, I then expanded on that. I was like, well, that's kind of like an odd task to do, I think, for somebody. So I explained on why. I'm like, well, my husband's really, really frugal, and he has all freezers stocked full, and I don't have time to juggling the 3-year-old with a baby diaper, and then Lauren and her meds or steroids or whatever. I don't have time to dig into the bottom and find something for dinner, or to find the waffles, or I can't do that. So they came over and helped organize my freezers. Well, Jim, my husband, was traveling in San Diego for business when the article came out, and then he called me. I hadn't had a chance to tell him yet. He called me from San Diego. He's like, apparently I'm a frugal shopper. he said, one of my old clients called Jeff, my brother, in Richmond. And one of his old clients, I think, is now the interim assistant head guy for Stafford County or something like that. But he was now one of my brother-in-law's clients. And anyway, so he called Jeff, and then Jeff called me, and then Jeff called him in San Diego to tell him he was a frugal shopper, and it was in the paper. Yeah. But it was funny. And I was on the phone in the car with him, and Lauren and Lindsay were in the car, and they just heard me laughing and tears coming down my face. And Lauren's like, Daddy's a frugal shopper. He buys a lot of fruit. No. So then we explained what it was. So now, I haven't told you guys this yet, but this past weekend, Lauren and Lindsay, my in-laws, were down helping because my husband was out of town again. Lauren and Lindsay were running around, frugal shopper, you're a frugal shopper. Of course, my in-laws got a big hoot out of it too. But anyway, so some of the things, before, if you're decide to be a volunteer, which I hope you do, because it's a wonderful, wonderful effort, and the families really do need it. I know, I don't know personally other people in the area that are in this situation, but I know that there's one that's a single mother, and her son's diagnosis is different than Lauren's. Growing up in a single parent home, I know how hard that is, even without cancer. I mean, I can't even imagine. We are very blessed. My husband and I are very blessed to have the situation that we're in, and that I'm able to be home. I stopped working when Lindsay was born by choice, and it was what was supposed to happen. So, if you decide to be a volunteer, then just know I think I'm an okay mom, but I'm not a good housekeeper. So just ignore the mess. I try to be organized, and sometimes I am, but that lasts for like a minute. If you come to my house, just make sure you bring a sense of humor. Helps us get through the day. Don't watch Hoarders before you come to my house, or if you do, don't go in the office. And then if you come while my kids are there, just be ready for whatever. I mean, it's a day by day, who knows what's gonna happen. It's a little bit more predictable now, and it probably will get even more predictable as we continue through treatment. Luckily, not everybody is in that kind of treatment mode. Some families have to travel to Philadelphia and Boston for much different, much different, much more toxic type of treatment. We don't have to do that right now. Luckily, we don't, and we won't. We won't have to do that. So if you come to my house, be prepared for playing Barbies, or perhaps I have to rush Lauren to a trip to the ER, or doing crafts, or pain management, or vomit. So you never know what's going to happen. It's happened. It happened with Victoria. Sorry to be graphic, but that's part of the world with cancer. We don't speak of cancer we speak of cancer. Lauren knows everything. I told her I would never lie to her. We don't speak of it as being life-threatening, and I definitely try not. She's very smart and very intuitive. I try not to tell stories of, or over here, or, oh, such and such relative passed away from breast cancer, or passed away from this, or whatever. I don't tell this. She'll click into that, and I don't want to do that. She knows she has cancer. And we definitely don't say the word, well, I'm not going to say it, I'm just going to spell it F-E-V-E-R. We don't say that word out loud in my house, ever. If Lauren gets one of those and it's 100.5, then I have to call the doctors, and then they'll instruct me what to do. More than likely, that means a trip to Fairfax emergency room, and it may or may not mean admission. We're blessed that we've only had to do that twice since we left the hospital. Once was for a croup, but when we do that, she gets access. And I mean, that in itself is just traumatic enough. It involves the tape on the skin, and it's just hard. So one night one time we were admitted, another time we weren't. So, we don't say that word in our house. Another thing is that with the Fairy Godmother project and the cleaning, I forgot to mention earlier, but it is so very, very important. It's not just helpful from a task elimination perspective. It's helpful because the kids in these situations they can become neutropenic, which means that their immunity levels drop so low or that's what the term is, that it's low and unsafe, and they can get sick very easily and very, very fast. In the hospital, there's one measure that people in the pediatric oncology world is called an ANC. You may or may not be familiar with that term, but a normal healthy adult's ANC is between 2,000 and 4,000. And then in the hospital, if the kids had an ANC of 500, of course when they're finishing treatment stuff, but if they had an ANC of 500 or above, or above 500, then they could leave. So 500 is considered good for these kids. So cleaning the house is very, very important. And having the house clean, like I said, it's not just from a task elimination, but for me personally, it decreases fears. It decreases, I can't go to sleep now. I need to go clean the bathroom, or and it's not just because I want the place clean. It's because you have to. It could be a life or death situation. One other point too that I wanted to make is the treatment. Most of the treatments for this is not here in Fredericksburg. It's either Fairfax or DC or Richmond, or like I said before, maybe for phases of your treatment you have to go to some of the other cities. It's tiring. It's hard. It's tiring, but you do what you got to do to take care of your child. So just a couple last points I wanted to mention about our new normal is we're tired. We hate steroids. We're tired. It's hard constantly making second by second decisions inclusive of cancer, especially for your child. I never thought in a million years I'd have to do that. My husband, like I said, we fight more. We're still together. Like my aunt said, you're still married. That's good. But we fight more. And her pill, 6-MP, we have to give it at night. You have to have it 2 hours after food and milk. And she likes her milk in her sippy cup, and I'm still letting her do it. If that gives her comfort, she can do it. That's fine. But if she is having milk at 7 or 8, then we have to stay up and give her 6-MP. So giving chemo at night for the 2 weeks is hard from a sleep perspective. Sometimes we fall asleep while we're waiting up to give her medicine, and my husband has to get up at 5:30 at work, and we take turns, and it's hard. It's hard. So the Fairy Godmother Project helps with all of that. Helps us navigate our new normal. So thank you for coming. Thank you for your time. Thanks. I have to go. Yes, sorry. I have to go take my little one sick.
One of the things throughout the slideshow is like every new thing we're going to talk about. I did a slide that says something about what cancer families want you to know based on surveys that were done. And actually, Linnell covered almost every single one of those, which is great because it's amazing to hear that the families say the same things over and over and over again, which are really important. You know, they're really important for us to know as we help these families and work with them. I think I'm going to try and start the presentation. I'm a little scared of it just because the technology is not going well, but here's just a quick slide that I'll this is, you can just read it over, but one of the things, what I did was I surveyed all these families and then I just cut and paste, essentially. So these are their exact words. Realize the families are going through a roller coaster of emotions and can become angry, euphoric, depressed, numb, closed off at any given time. It's not personal, it's a coping mechanism. Please don't try to give me parenting or medical advice. You have not walked in my shoes. And that's a really important thing for a Fairy Godmother Project with our guidelines is like, you are not a doctor, with the exception of one of you, to my knowledge at least. So there's no reason, even if you have a really strong opinion, it's really not yours to give in this situation. I mean, just that's something that we really feel strongly about because A, you haven't walked in their shoes, and B, you're not a doctor. So you shouldn't be giving any kind of medical advice. So that's just something to think about. And I think, let's see, our next speaker is here, Dr. Allegretti. Dr. Allegretti is going to talk about some of the stuff actually that Linnell mentioned. Neutropenia and what that means in terms of the perspective of us, the volunteers going into homes.
Okay. I know what she talked about already. Did she cover much of the? No. Okay. Hi, everyone. I think the most important thing, well, with working with kids, just like normal kids who have cancer, kids of any kind, hand washing is always really the most important thing. And it's crucial with these kids because they're a lot more susceptible to all different kinds of infections, both bacterial and viral. So good hand washing is really, really important. And hand sanitizer is okay to use too if it's an alcohol-based one because it will kill both viruses and bacteria. You can't really rely on an antibacterial soap though because they don't kill viruses. So it doesn't mean that you can wash really quick if you're using an antibacterial soap. You still have to take the time to really scrub all the surfaces, especially if you're involved in preparing food for people, which I understand you guys are doing. And with kids who are neutropenic, did she talk about the neutropenic precautions that they can't have certain fruits and vegetables, that kind of thing? Well, when they're extremely neutropenic, do you guys know what neutropenia is? Okay.
She explained it a little bit.
Okay. So those are the white cells that are mainly involved in fighting off bacterial infections. And normal is to be over 1,000. If you get below 1,000, you're more susceptible to infections. If you get below 500, you're really susceptible. And a lot of these kids on chemo are like 50, 100, 200. I mean, they're very, very susceptible. So in those kind of cases, they can't even have anything that's basically been in contact with the ground. They shouldn't have like root vegetables, fresh fruits and vegetables. Things like oranges with a thick peel usually are okay, but you should always check with the parent for any fruits and vegetables. Flowers, they're not supposed to come into contact with. Plants, I mean anything that could have come into contact with germs in the dirt is a problem for them. So things that you wouldn't normally think about and things that you think, oh, I washed it well, for neutropenic kids can be an issue. So I would always check with the parent what the level is of susceptibility for that child. If they're right in the midst of chemo, They can be really, really severe. And for the same reason, even a cold that you might have, something that might be almost nothing to you, just slightly sick, you really shouldn't be around a kid who's neutropenic in that kind of situation. The neutropenia makes you more susceptible to bacterial infections, but if you catch a virus and you're neutropenic, it can lower your neutrophils further, and then you're susceptible to any kind of secondary infection like pneumonias, ear infections, sinus infections, all that kind of stuff. So what might be 2 days of a runny nose to you could be life-threatening for a kid with cancer. So if you feel like you're maybe getting a cold, anything like that, I would just stay away and, you know, cancel if you have to. That's better, and I'm sure the parents will understand. They don't want their child to be sick either. Trying to think if there's anything else on the list that you gave me. I think that was pretty much the list. Yeah.
It's best to stay away from uncooked fruits and vegetables altogether?
For the most part. I mean, not every child who's going through cancer treatment is going to be severely neutropenic. So if you check with the parent, they'll be able to tell you. Every parent I know of a child with cancer is totally on top of those blood counts. They can tell you what their blood count was to the, you know, decimal point the last time it was done, so they'll know. And they'll have a list from their doctors of what's okay, what's not okay. But, you know, if it's been a while since they've had their last chemo, their counts may have come up, they can kind of go back to normal diet. They still have to be careful about being exposed to illness, but the fruits and vegetable thing is only for severely neutropenic kids. Are there other things you wanted me to talk about?
That's great, yeah.
Okay, that was easy.
That's great. Good. Well, glad to hear that. Well, thank you.
I just think the biggest thing is always checking with the family, because I'm sure that you guys learned from the last speaker. I mean, these parents are extremely knowledgeable, and they don't go into this being that knowledgeable usually, but they become extremely knowledgeable about what's going on, and they're really the expert on their child. So, you know, even for me, not being a cancer expert but being a pediatrician, if their parent comes in and tells me this is the way it is with my kid, I believe them, because these parents really know what they're talking about. So if you aren't sure about anything at all, just check with them beforehand. I'm sure they'll appreciate that. Thank you guys for doing this great project. It's really cool. Thanks. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Now I'm actually going to start the presentation. Now I'm not sure what will happen. This could go horribly wrong, but hopefully not. Oh, see, like I said, so nice. There. Well, our next speaker is Stephanie Johnson. Okay. This is going to start, so we'll just ignore that while Stephanie's talking as it goes through and see what it does. We'll start from the beginning. No, not that. If it were on my Mac, absolutely, but not me.
Okay. Okay. I'm Stephanie Johnson, and I am the photographer, director of photography, I guess, photography person for the Godmother Project. Basically what we do, since my slide's not up, I'll just say this from my brain. We offer photography sessions, portrait sessions with professional photographers to our families. We offer them to families anywhere from, this is one of our sessions, anywhere from diagnosis to 1 year post-treatment. The reason we go 1 year post-treatment is that often families might want their hair to grow back, or for whatever reason, want to get out of that crazy stage before they even have time for sessions. In other situations, you know, that might not be possible, so we, you know, could offer sessions in the hospital if necessary, outside if they can be outside, in their home if that's best. We have about 14 photographers on board right now. We've had 4 sessions. This actually was the first session that I did for Fairy Godmother Project.
Oh, look.
And
sorry.
He had ATRT, the same thing that Abby had. And he was diagnosed at 6.5 months and passed away about 2.5 weeks after this session. So they cherish these. They never had professional portraits done. This is how they say that his sister will remember him. And this is, they say, the last time that they kind of saw the light in his eyes. So not every session will be that dramatic, or, you know, but just as an example of why we think it's so important. We want to give this to families. So we have 14 photographers on, and we'll have a lot more. And we've done 4 sessions so far. We have 4 in the scheduling phase right now. This is another one of our cute little guys. He was diagnosed at 5.5 months with stage 4 rhabdomyosarcoma. And he is in grade. He's now over a year old, his birthday, so he's doing awesome. So we try to, the goal is just to catch them where they are now and how they look now, and preferably interacting with their family. And, I think that was it on my slide. So that's the photography aspect of Fairy Godmother.
Does anyone care if I just stand here? Sort of stressed about standing up there. No, I don't. So, like I said, I just put some little blurbs. This is one of the things that one of the families that responded to the survey said is that understand the physical differences a child might have, weight gain from steroids, etc. Don't be surprised by medical things. Sort of like Linnell said, the vomiting. I heard that's from so many parents. They're like, sometimes they just throw up, and it becomes your new normal. And my friend Jill always talks about how her carpet is like, there's just stains everywhere all over the carpet just from, 54 weeks of treatment that Debbie went through. And the steroids, that makes kids swell. And so just one of the things is just sort of be prepared for those kinds of things. If it's not something that is too upsetting for you, which for some people it is, then probably your best bet is just to make meals. If it's going to be uncomfortable for you to be in the homes because of that, that's okay. But we still want your help. But just, know your own limits in terms of that sort of thing. Now, the last time, and it says handout, but that's a lie. There's no handout. There was. But the last time we had a therapist come and talk, and then she wasn't able to make it this time, so she just shared with us some active listening strategies for when you're talking with the families. And the thing about this, when our last orientation, our first one, who am I trying to get? But it was our last one. But we talked a lot about it, and she was talking about active listening, and then I sort of thought about it. I was like, so essentially these families aren't going to be actively listening to us. Their brains are everywhere. So that's something to keep in mind. But these are just some basic things. Face the speaker, maintain eye contact, which I love, to the degree that you all remain comfortable. No creepy eyes, people, please. Minimize external distractions, which hopefully, if you were at someone's home, you're not going to turn on their television, excuse me, real quick. And then respond appropriately. This is a big thing, and I added the yellow. This is important because many of our families just want to talk things through and know someone is listening. So a lot of raising your eyebrows, really interesting, just showing that you're listening. And really actually listen, because they need it. Focus solely on what the speaker is saying. Minimize internal distractions. And this is one that the therapist pointed out that we all sort of have a tendency to do. And the whole time she was talking, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm totally not doing that. I'm thinking about other things, my to-do list, and I was really focusing to hone in on what the person is talking about. So all of you right now are thinking, oh, I've got to do laundry and I've got to make dinner for tomorrow, but try and just, take a moment and just listen. Keep an open mind. This is key when talking with our families. Your role is not to make assumptions or judgments. And I think Linnell sort of, I think she sort of shared not insecurity is probably the wrong word, but it's hard to let someone come into your home. I mean, it's really hard. And often when, we'd be getting ready to go to her house, she'd be like, oh, but it's such a mess. And so one day I took a picture on my cell phone of my whole hallway with laundry everywhere, and I sent it to her via text. She never said anything to me about it. She was probably like, she's a lunatic, but she's going to come and clean my house. But I just was like, no one lives perfectly, I mean, and maybe some of you do, and if you do, come on over and teach me how. But it's not easy, and I think when you add, like she said, everything she said is so right on to what I was trying to express, but coming from me, it doesn't mean nearly as much as it does from her. I mean, she really hit every single thing that we've heard over time from families. And she mentioned this too, avoid sharing friends' experience with cancer. It's so important, and so many of the people that responded to the survey said that people would say things to them like, well, I know someone who, a terrible story, and they'd be like, really? You think this is appropriate to share with me? So that's something just to keep in mind. That's not your role. You're just there to listen, actively listen. And hopefully the speaker will not be launching a complaint against you. But if that does happen, let Stephanie or myself know right away if something goes horribly wrong. Engage yourself. That's really important, just asking for questions and showing them that you care and that you're listening goes a long way. Listening to Linnell was, I didn't really know Linnell before this, but she's amazing, and we've developed a relationship, and I know she and Stephanie have gotten much closer just from this experience, and she's just so thankful for it, and when you work with the families, you do engage yourself, and you do become involved in a lot of ways that are really great, and then there's other ways that's hard, like the photos that can be very emotional. So just know your limitations and the whole thing. So, what you've all been waiting for. Volunteer opportunities. There's lots of different opportunities. Oh, but by the way, what cancer families want you to know? Threw that in there. Have an understanding that no 2 days are ever the same, which Linnell said. She might as well have made this slideshow. So, okay, so these are the different, we are doing background checking. And essentially the way it works is that we have to pay for the background checking. And we are very small, we don't have a lot of money. So we will not background check everyone. Essentially, if you're interested in doing some of the jobs that do involve background checking, then if you've shown a commitment to the Fair Godmother Project, then we'll go forward with background checking. But people lots of times think that they're going to have more time than they do, and then we end up in a position where people that thought they would be able to be more committed aren't. And it's totally understandable, but we want to make sure that before we pay to have something like that done, that there's a commitment to it. But some of the things that can be done, meal making, administrative tasks, phone calls, emails, letter writing, communications, marketing, public relations, and fundraising and development. So all those things, for those of you who maybe have some free time, you're not sure how you can get away to help with cleaning or whatever, those might be some options for you. And then in addition we have, this will evolve. In 2012 is our goal to do this. There'll be a lead family relations volunteer, and that person will be assigned to a family. They'll be the point of contact for service providers. Because of the article in the paper, have been very fortunate that people sort of come out of the woodwork to help us. And which is an expression I didn't think I ever used until I read the quote in the paper, and I was like, did I actually say that? And I've said it 10 times since. I'm like, oh, I need to cut that out. But anyway, people come out of the woodwork to provide different things for us. But now there's a logistics component that sort of gets complicated. Stephanie's in touch with the lawn people, but I've been the main contact to the families, and then it's like we have a middleman that's just totally unnecessary, but how do you suddenly shift it up? So we're trying to kind of work that out. So the lead family relations volunteer would be the person that would handle that. And it's a big commitment. It's up to 10 hours a month. It probably wouldn't be 10 hours a month, but there's potential that it could be. There's potential it could be 3 hours a month. But and then provide weekly or bi-weekly support in home with projects or cleaning. A lot of these families have actual projects. I'm bogged down, like Linnell said, I haven't even unpacked. That's something, if we could get in there and knock some of that out for her, it would just alleviate her stress on so many levels. And then a family relations volunteer, someone who assists the lead volunteer with weekly or bi-weekly support, depending on your own schedule, and requires about 4 or more hours a month. So the goal is we have service providers who are cleaning the homes, but then there's also going to be a need for, keeping up with the toilets and the kitchens. If we could get people that were committed to going every other week or every week into the homes, just spending an hour or 2 hours on a set day, going in and just knocking that out for the families, it would really make a big difference. Because now we sort of, we do a lot of juggling where, I don't know what we do, but we just kind of do a lot of juggling, trying to make it work. So, and then just regular, that you wouldn't necessarily be assigned to a specific family, but you could do cleaning, organizing, home projects, childcare, and that's a minimum of 2 hours a month. One of the things that came up one time when I was talking to Jill was, and every single family has a different perspective on what they're willing to share, but it's really important to us that that's really respected. For example, on Facebook, we don't ever share a family story without getting their permission. So even though it's all over Facebook and Joe Schmo's sharing it, we always contact the family and say, I'd like to share your story, is that okay? Because we really feel like we just don't want our intentions to ever be misconstrued, or we just want to make sure we're respecting the families. because the reality is it's not our story to tell, it's really theirs. And if we can share it for them and therefore help them, like one family recently on the Facebook page we shared about, they're headed to New York and they're going to be there 2 to 3 weeks at a time, and they have to pay $25 a night at Ronald McDonald's. And they have to do that every month, indefinitely. And the amount it's going to cost them monthly is like, it's going to be $600 or $700 to go and receive treatment up in New York. So I was hoping we could maybe rally some support for that, but we had to check with the family first. And I know not everyone does that, but it's just something that we have been very committed to from talking with. Some people are really open, like, yeah, tell my story, it's great, more awareness. And then other people are like, I don't want to be stopped in the grocery store as the cancer family. So we tried to find kind of a good balance where we make sure we're respecting the wishes of each individual family.
And even with the photos, they have to get permission every time we use their photos, or they get permission for exactly what they want us to use them for, if anything, and we don't ever want them to feel obligated to allow us to use their story or their photos. Some families say, use my pictures, use our story if it helps, spread the word and it helps get volunteers or whatever, and other people don't want to be recognized and don't really want that out there, so we just leave it up to them.
Mm-hmm. So we really try and be very conscious of that. Okay, so one of the main volunteer forms that you have to fill out is the guidelines, and they're just a breakdown of the expectations that we have for our volunteers. Respecting confidentiality is key. There's no reason for a volunteer to be talking about another family. And it can sort of get weird. I was at a meeting today with a potential business that was going to help us, and I was talking about photos, but I wasn't talking in reference to, I was talking about a child that this person knew, but I didn't say anything to the Fairy Godmother Project. And she asked me point blank, oh, was it a Fairy Godmother Project session? And I said, oh, I can't tell you that. And she was really offended. I thought, oh God, she's going to bail on me. And all these things that we just sat down and promised. She was like, what do you mean you can't tell me? And I said, oh, I'm really sorry, but for privacy reasons, I can't share whether it was or not. I mean, I'm sure she caught on, but I'm not even sure she did. But maybe she did. That it had been, but it was just I said, well, I can't share that.
Because it's charity, and it's hard to accept charity.
Yes, it's very hard for people to accept charity. So respecting confidentiality is key. And one of the things that Stephanie and I often talk about is how funny is that we will help a family and then they would never put anything on Facebook or anything. But then we have some families, like I was introduced to a crowd of people as this woman's fairy godmother, and I wanted to like crawl in a hole. She's like, this is her. And I was like, oh my God, this is awkward. It was like, normally I'm pretty good in crowds, but I was like, so I'm going to go. But she's somebody that on Facebook will post all the time, like, everybody needs a fairy godmother and that kind of thing. But then there's families that you'd never even know that we've done anything for, so it just sort of varies. And you will get a lot of it, you'll get addresses or meals and that sort of thing, but it is totally private. Report any concerns, questions, or conflicts immediately to us. Again, if someone confronts you about something you've done, please let us know. Use care when listening, use active listening strategies, keep opinions to yourself, be sensitive to your choice of words. That's really something that kept coming up and coming up and coming up in the surveys, was that people would say things like, well, everything happens for a reason. Well, no one wants to hear that. Really, what's the reason exactly? And also, religion is a big thing that we ask. I think it's later in the thing, but everyone has different religious beliefs. So we ask that our volunteers not say something like, it's God's will, or anything, just if you can, please keep God out of it, no matter what your beliefs are, because it can be offensive. We've had families that were, atheists. We've had, lots of different people, and it could very easily offend someone. And that's our goal, is to not add stress to their lives, to take it away. And again, know your own limitations. Like if you are not comfortable seeing a child that's, undergoing cancer treatment, that's okay. You totally get that and respect it. But know that, and don't put yourself in a position where you might be uncomfortable. Always happy to have feedback, suggestions, and recommendations. Discuss with FGP after volunteer experiences to enhance volunteer family interactions. So afterward, we have a form that you can fill out and just tell us a little bit about your experience, how it went, and we ask the parents to do the same thing. Unfortunately, the parents are very busy, and that doesn't really happen. But in theory, it would. And then remain alcohol and drug free while volunteering for FGP. You know, it's a little to ask. I think we can do it, maybe. And also, I was told I had to put this. There will be no monetary compensation for you. Just so you know.
It's not paid.
Yeah, everything here is volunteer. We have a volunteer, and I have it here, liability waiver that was directed by our attorney, and essentially it keeps you from getting sued and us from getting sued if something happens to you when you're in a home. We also have one that the families sign too, just in case. So like, for example, when I died, Linnell's rugs blue, which she didn't, she was so nice, not to mention I washed them with something dark blue. I was being so helpful and washing all the rugs in the whole house. And I was like, Stephanie, I don't think they were light blue when I went in. And she was like,
Well, it turned out one was light blue.
It was very confusing.
And we were trying to, we like bleached them like 3 times. Like, oh my.
Yeah, it was not a pretty sight. I thought she was going to mention it.
She did not sue us.
Yeah, she did, but she did not sue us, thankfully. We were like, we will buy you new ones. And she was like laughing, but it was not. I mean, I don't think I've been ever so stressed. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're supposed to be doing a good thing, not ruining people's stuff. So I don't do any more laundry. And then the form, I think maybe, oh man, I thought I'd be able to click on this. Essentially what the SP-167, and I'll send you this in an email, you have to go on the website and fill out the entire form online, and then you print it. And then it has to be notarized, but it has to be notarized in the presence of Stephanie or myself, and you have to be there. So what we're going to do, I'm hitting up the guys at UPS, I've decided, we're going to set up times where, you know, we'll be at some place where you can get it notarized. I think ultimately one of us will become a notary, but it's not going to happen in like next 2 weeks. So if anyone's here is a notary, please become one again. So it's a really easy form to fill out too. It's very basic, and then it just prints. I did it for myself just to see what it was like. Very simple to fill out. And then this was the final quote. That's what one of the parents said in their thing was, it's about relationships. And so that sort of kind of sums up what it's all about. I know personally for me, the relationships that I've developed with these families has just been like nothing I ever expected it to be. And sort of what's interesting is one of the things the reporter, Kathy Dyson, asked us was, so how does it feel to be the fairy godmother of all these children? And I was like, you know, it isn't really like we're the fairy godmothers of the children. We're really taking care of the parents. It isn't about
so that they can take care.
So that they can take care of the children, right? And so, I mean, of all the families that we're helping right now, I know 2 of the children. I mean, I really know the parents, but I have very limited time with the kids. So that was my closing. That's it. So are there any questions? Comments? Do y'all just want to stand up? You're like dozing off? No? Anything?
How many families are you helping right
In Fredericksburg, we have 4, and then we have 2 that we've helped in Northern Virginia, plus not including like the photography piece in terms of domestic piece. And then there's 2 families that we've helped with some meals and care packages in Richmond area. And so we've just been the last few weeks after the article came out, we've just been spending our time having meetings. Like we got Mary Maids to offer one session, one cleaning a month indefinitely. So until they can't handle it anymore. And we got a couple of different restaurants who are offering to do meals where the families can go in and have a night, the mom and dad can go out for dinner and just be treated like kings and queens. And actually Foodie, they can decide which way to do it, but they're leaving it up to the families. They can the couple can either go in or they'll bring a table, set it up for a table for 2, bring a bottle of wine and meals to their homes, whichever works better for the parents. And Jay Bryant's is on board too, and Amy's Cafe is doing 1 meal a month, and then she's also doing all sorts of amazing things in addition to that.
Lawn care.
Lawn care. We've got lawn care totally. Stephanie got it totally donated for 4 families. So.
Have you guys looked into doing anything as far as like a Christmas party or collecting gifts for the families?
We haven't, and the reason we haven't is because there's already a lot of organizations that do that. So our goal has sort of been to do something that's unique, that isn't done. Because we actually were told by one mom, she said, here's the thing, my kid gets so much stuff and so much CRE. We need help. we don't need more stuff for the kids. And I was like, because there's so many amazing organizations that they do that. They do Christmas gifts. They do all kinds.
They get a lot of
great
toys
stuff.
every time they're in the
Every time
hospital.
they're in the hospital, they get toys. They get backpacks filled with toys. They get a great deal of stuff. And
But we
so-
have gotten the moms some hair and
Yes, we
nails
have.
donated.
Yes.
Would you consider like having like, if it was somebody that could go into the home and go in at like around Christmas time and, make cookies or something like that to kind of give the mom and dad their own time too, but yet still do something with the children?
Yeah, we haven't quite gotten to the point where we've figured out the liability and in terms of our volunteers being with the children, because it gets pretty dicey there. It can get it's kind of complicated, and so that's one piece that we're still trying to work out on how we would handle that, and whether or not that's an option. We ideally, like in the perfect world, we've always imagined like childcare being provided, but then it really does get complicated.
Yeah.
So.
Well, because if they're ill,
Right.
you kind of need more of a nurse than you do
Right.
a babysitter.
Yeah. Well, and then just the medical issues and medication, and there's just a lot of factors. So I think our ultimate goal would be that we could do things like that, but right now we're not in a position where we're ready to. So if you guys know anyone who's like, I don't know, has a great skill that would benefit, Fair Godmother Project. I think fun. Like the hairstyling, it's just, I can't even begin to explain the excitement from the moms when I mentioned that was going to be something that was going to be an option for them. It was like, oh my God, really? They'll come to my house, and it was just like absolute joy. And then I was getting my haircut, and I mentioned it to my hairstylist, and she said, oh, well, why don't you have them come in and they can get pedicures and stuff. So we're still working out the logistics of that with them. But, everybody does want to give, and there's so many ways to just alleviate some of the stress. So,
Massages, that would be good.
yes, it would be great. I'll work on that.
Do you
Wine.
prefer to ask those different businesses yourself to solicit their donations, or
You can ask anyone you want. Seriously. Yeah, I mean, like if you have a contact or you think that someone that might be willing to do something like that, just let us know and, go for it. We have a 501c3, which sometimes matters to people, sometimes it doesn't, but they can deduct whatever they donate. So, but a lot of people don't. Like I was talking to a restaurant owner, he's like, I don't care. I go, okay, I'll make you.
And then other people want like a copy,
Yes,
so that's
immediately.
fine.
Yeah, I actually had a funny interaction with a man who was like, well, I mean, there's a lot of fraud out there. And I was like, you're just in the paper. I swear we're not fraudulent. I promise you. I am. Don't you recognize my double chin? Just kidding. So anyway, but any questions? Okay. These are, and I'll tell you what the papers are. This is a sheet that gives you an email address. It's different